Thanks everyone for coming to my talk titled A Decade of Privacy-Relevant Android App Reviews, Large-Scale Trends. I'm Omer. I'm a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon, but I did most of this work as an intern at Google and as a PhD student at the University of Maryland. This work wouldn't be possible without my co-authors, some of whom are in the audience today: Sai, Nina, Michelle, Hamza, Animesh, and Benoit. Designing systems that respect users' privacy requires measuring user sentiment about privacy. Turns out it's pretty hard to do this, but fortunately, researchers are smart and they've come up with a couple different methods. You can run user studies such as surveys and interviews where you get to ask very specific questions about privacy and get very rich answers. The problem is it's very hard to scale these things, and if you do, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. It's really expensive. On the other hand, you can run very large-scale experiments, A/B testing, where you deploy a privacy feature to some of your audience and not to the other part of your audience. You compare their behavior, but then you're measuring behavior and inferring privacy sentiment, not necessarily measuring what it is. On the other hand, users already talk a lot about a lot of things online, including about software. So user feedback is plentiful. It comes in various different formats, such as on social media, but also on platforms that let you review things, such as application stores like the Google Play. And in fact, for this study, we'll be focusing on reviews on the Google Play. Now, remember, our focus was privacy-relevant feedback. What is privacy-relevant feedback? Well, it's defined in a taxonomy in our paper. I'd urge you to go read it. But it's also very hard to get at from this unstructured feedback. They talk about everything. Prior work does use this data source, though it does have some limitations. They have scale issues. Sometimes the analysis isn't in depth. We saw some inefficiencies, and we thought we could fix some of them. How do we go about this? Well, the idea is to use a language model to process a lot of data, enabling generalizability. It produces, we hope it produces quick and high-level insights. It can add context to prior work, find gaps in research, perhaps give you an idea what's going on in a space before you go about running your user studies. So we find it complementary to existing methods such as surveys and interviews, not necessarily a replacement. We think we can answer questions such as, which privacy issues do users face? How do these evolve over time? What about across countries and across different products, different application categories? How do we go about doing this? Well, we base our methodology off of this paper called A Deep Learning System for Navigating Privacy Feedback at Scale. It's by my co-authors, but we don't use it directly. We modify it. There's multiple models in this system, and we improve those models. Details are in the paper. The way it works in practice is we take 2 billion public reviews from the Google Play. This is nearly every single review that's been written on the Google Play in the last 10 years, excluding small apps. We feed this into Hark, and the details work as follows. We first feed it into a privacy feedback classifier, which gives us 12.3 million privacy reviews. To the best of my knowledge, this is the biggest ever corpus of privacy-relevant feedback that's ever been analyzed. We feed that into an issue generator, which gives us the granular issues that people are talking about in reviews, including multiple issues per review. We take these, we cluster them, we feed them into a theme generator, creating high-level themes, somewhat analogous to qualitative coding, but at a larger scale. We also get the emotions, the prevalent emotions in these reviews to get user sentiment about what they're thinking. And with these 3 data sources, we already have a pretty good picture, but we also get quality quotes to do some qualitative analysis and get even richer with our analysis. We analyze these across time, application types, including security and privacy applications, and different countries. That's our methodology. What did we actually find? Well, turns out, privacy reviews are going up. There's more and more of them. But you're right, all reviews are going up. So we took the ratio. Turns out that's going up too. It started around 0.4% a decade ago, and now it's around 0.8% or 1%. You might have noticed a couple peaks. We did too, so we looked into them. This one's about Talking Angela. Talking Angela is a game where you talk to Angela, Angela repeats the same thing back to you, and it mimics you. Parents thought that there was a pedophile in Talking Angela's eyes. Turns out that's not true. This one is about Facebook forcing Facebook Messenger on everyone. This one is about WhatsApp changing its privacy policy, people complaining, and then shifting to other applications. Now, you see almost a monotonic increase, right? Is that consistent across different dimensions, such as different themes, different privacy issues, different countries? What about different application types, different products? The answer is no, no, and you guessed it, no. Let's dive deeper, starting with themes. Turns out, themes fluctuate over time. What we found is that sensitive permissions concerns used to be way more prevalent back in the day, around 10 years ago, and has decreased ever since. This is both in relation to overall privacy reviews and overall reviews. People don't complain as much about excessive permissions, saying certain permissions are unneeded, or complaining that location access was wanted. On the other hand, complaints about personal information privacy, unfortunately, have been going up. This is stuff like collecting email, addresses, your name, maybe your browsing history. And we know this because people complain about data theft, companies stealing data from them, and request the deletion of this data. Now, this fluctuation doesn't just exist in themes, it's also across countries. What you find is that reviewers from Indonesia talk more and more about privacy reviews, privacy-relevant feedback. The same case is applicable to the United States and Turkey. On the other hand, it's mostly flat with India, and with Vietnam, it actually dropped. Now, this does not necessarily tell you why any of this is happening, right? So we thought about the same question, so we tried to answer it. What we did is we generated this heat map. What this heat map will show you is a bunch of cells, and each cell will depict how prevalent a certain privacy issue is within a country. So you'll see that with Indonesia, data theft and data deletion is really popular. With Turkey, fingerprint matters and personal information privacy is pretty popular. We thought these dark spots were interesting, so we looked into them. Turns out, with the case with Indonesia, it's about predatory loan apps. There's some prior work on this showing that people really hate predatory loan apps, especially in Kenya, because of their privacy invasiveness. In our data set, people complained that these applications were stealing their data, they wanted their data to be deleted. We found it mostly in Indonesia, but it existed in India and Mexico and many more countries, implying that the issue was global. This big spike you'll see in 2022 in Indonesia is mostly explained by this phenomenon. People complain, saying stuff like, the app stole my data, including my Facebook account. It told me that the loan process would be easier if I input all of my data. Google Play policy has changed in response to this. Moving on to Turkey, this is a very curious case, and I want to tell a little story to depict what I think is going on here. Say you're really into Bitcoin, like really, really into Bitcoin. So as a person who's really into Bitcoin, you go to Google Play, you find an application where you can buy Bitcoin, then you start scrolling, and you notice, that's a lot of data collection. Maybe I'm not comfortable with that. But you're really into Bitcoin. You want to buy Bitcoin. So you go back, you download the app anyway, you hit review, and you write this review. I give no permission to share things, my photo, national ID number, password, with third parties. And if such thing happens, the app bears sole responsibility, and it will take legal action against them. Is that a legal disclaimer? Well, turns out that this type of review appears a lot from users from Turkey, with users from Turkey. In fact, it explains a lot of that spike in 2022. It's unclear if they think that this is really protective, if this is a real legal notice, but I would argue that it indicates that they care about privacy. And we need more research to know for sure. What you might notice from looking at this heat map again is that there aren't only these dark spots. Some of these columns are somewhat similar to one another. And turns out there's a long line of research trying to find similarities and differences between countries and the privacy sentiment of the users that come from there. And so we ran a clustering algorithm on this. And if I were to depict it on a map, what you'll see is that cultural and geographical similarity sometimes predicts these clusters, such as this Central Europeanish cluster, this ex-Soviet cluster over here. But what you'll also find is there are weird clusters like this one, where India, South Africa, I think that's Kenya, and Nigeria, they exist in the same cluster. I can't really think of a reason why, and there are many more clusters like this one. So this is not a rule. We talked about countries, we talked about themes. What about different categories of applications? What about different industries? Well, turns out there's a lot of these in our data set, and people have mixed emotions depending on the category. These people particularly hate in terms of the privacy. Loans they don't like because we talked about loans, loan apps. They don't like pet simulators because of Talking Angela. They don't like social media. I don't think I need to explain that one. With child monitors and location tracking, while parents really like these things, the children do not, which explains the negative sentiment. On the other hand, if your application's primary feature is to provide security and privacy, people are really appreciative of that. For instance, with personal diary and journaling applications, turns out people like journaling, and they like to keep it hidden with a password. With application lockers, this is a very interesting category of applications where you get to hide applications from your home screen under another lock screen, separate from your phone's lock screen. You can also manage your album like this. It's crucial if you're sharing your device with someone. Turns out there's some research on this back in the day. It actually got an award the other day at SUPS. And there's some new research coming out. However, I think this is a very underexplored area. These things are super popular all over the world. People like password managers because hassle-free passwords, easy unlock with biometrics. Who doesn't like that? Turns out that people believe in the privacy promises of VPNs. They mostly reflect what VPN ads say about VPNs. And antivirus tools have turned into this toolbox of security and privacy software, and people like that. To sum up, our methods enable large-scale analysis uncovering issues broad and deep. We analyzed 2 billion public play reviews, finding 12.3 million privacy reviews, and then we analyzed them further. We found that privacy reviews go up but vary across different dimensions. Countries list the group, but there are many unique issues preventing overgeneralizations. Security and privacy applications get really positive feedback, which is an absolute privacy win. With this work, we add context to prior work, uncover new issues, and highlight under-researched ideas. There were many other results in our paper and many other arguments that I'd explore you to go read. With that being said, happy to take questions.